I never thought I would be the kind of person who cuts off their own parents forever. I always believed family was everything. I believed that until the day I found out what my parents were doing while I was standing at my husband's grave. Let me tell you exactly what happened, and let me ask you something at the end, because I still wonder, did I go too far, or did they get exactly what they deserved? My husband, David, was the kind of man who remembered your coffee order after meeting you once. He was an architect, quiet, careful, brilliant with details, and he loved me in a way I had never been loved before, completely, without conditions. We were married for 11 years. We built a home together, a historic property we spent 3 years renovating ourselves. We had plans, real plans, retirement by the coast, travel, time. 6 months ago, he was killed in a car accident on a Tuesday morning. He was on his way to pick up coffee for us both. The grief was not like anything I had words for. It was not sadness. It was the removal of a whole world. Everything I reached for, he was not there. To understand what my parents did, you have to understand who they are. My father, Robert, spent his entire life chasing investments that never paid off. My mother, Elena, cared more about appearances than reality. They were always 1 month away and always looking for someone else to solve it. When I married David, they immediately saw his success as their solution. He was generous. He helped them, quietly, without making them feel small. But he also protected us. Our home was in a trust. Our assets were legally separated. My parents knew this. It frustrated them. In the weeks after David died, they were at our house constantly. I thought they were grieving with me. I was too broken to see what they were actually doing. My mother kept asking where David kept important papers. My father kept walking through rooms, pausing in front of artwork, looking at the bookcases. I thought they were just lost, the way people get when someone dies. They were not lost. They were assessing. The morning of the funeral was gray and cold. I arrived at the church early. I saved seats for my parents in the front row. My brother James kept checking his phone, looking at the door. They never came. I sat through the entire service, the readings, the eulogy, the burial, with that empty row beside me. I kept telling myself there had been an accident, a car problem, something. When I got home, a message was waiting. It was from my mother. It said, "We had an appointment with Dr. Harlow that we simply couldn't reschedule. It's for the best, Clara. We will explain tomorrow." I did not that night. I told myself I would wait. I would hear them out. 2 days later, I found a folder on my kitchen counter. My parents had left it behind after a visit. Inside were printed copies of my medical records from 5 years ago when I experienced postpartum depression after a miscarriage. There were also handwritten notes in my mother's handwriting, notes describing my behavior since David's death, refusing to eat, crying uncontrollably, withdrawing from the family. They were building a psychiatric case against me. They had skipped my husband's funeral to meet with a doctor, not for their own grief, to begin the process of having me declared mentally unfit, so they could petition for conservatorship, so they could move into my house, so they could control David's life insurance payout. I was standing in my kitchen holding the proof. While I was lowering my husband into the ground, my own parents were in a doctor's office trying to legally take my life from me. Before I tell you what I did next, I want to stop here and ask you something directly. If you had found that folder, if you had stood in that kitchen and understood what your own parents had done, what would your first move have been? Would you have called them immediately, confronted them face to face? Or would you have gone quiet and planned every step before they knew you were watching? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. What I chose next changed everything.
I did not call them. I went quiet. I called Sarah, David's attorney and our close friend. I showed her everything. She told me the conservatorship route was difficult to prove, but my parents were clearly laying the groundwork for a legal war. Then I remembered something. David had a safe in his home office. My parents had tried to open it. They hadn't been able to. I opened it. Inside was a digital recorder. David had started recording calls a year earlier, after my father had threatened him over a loan request. I pressed play, and there was my father's voice, clear, calm, threatening. He said, "If you don't give us the money, I'll tell Clara you're cheating. I'll destroy your marriage, and then I'll take her for everything she has once she leaves you." It was extortion. My father had threatened my husband. My husband had said nothing to protect me from knowing. I also found, among the mail they had been redirecting to our address, a foreclosure notice on their home. They were weeks away from losing everything. That is why they were so desperate. They had chosen to use my husband's death as their way out.
I invited them to dinner. They came with rehearsed smiles and a weak apology about the funeral. My mother even suggested, at my own dinner table, in my own home, that perhaps it would be best if they moved in to help me manage things. I let her finish. Then I placed the digital recorder on the table and pressed play. I watched my father's face change as he heard his own voice. Color drained out of him completely. I slid the folder across the table, the one they had left behind. I slid the foreclosure notice beside it. I told them I knew about the psychiatrist. I told them I knew about the conservatorship plan. I told them I knew about the extortion. My mother began to cry, the same tears she had used my entire life. I felt nothing. I gave them 24 hours to remove everything they had brought into my home. I told them that if I ever saw them again, I would take the recording to the police and file criminal charges.
They tried to turn the family against me. They told my aunts and uncles that I had become paranoid and cold after David's death. I sent the recording to every one of them. The silence from their side was its own answer. My parents lost their house. They are living 3 states away in a small apartment. They wrote me a letter recently. They said they were desperate. They said they were sorry. A parent's desperation does not justify hunting their child. I sold the big house. It had too many shadows now, not just from losing David, but from learning who my parents really were inside those walls. I live by the sea now. Small cottage, quiet mornings, real safety. I learned something I wish I had learned earlier. The people who are supposed to protect you are sometimes the ones you most need protection from. Blood does not make someone family. Loyalty does. Love does. Showing up does. My parents failed that test completely. If you believe I was right to expose them, please like this video. It tells me this story mattered to you. And if you have ever had someone use your worst moment against you, you already know exactly how this felt. Subscribe to this channel. Every week we share real stories of betrayal, survival, and the truth finally coming to light. You are not alone in what you have been through. And please, leave me a comment. Did I go too far? Or did they get exactly what they deserved? I will see you in the next story.